Hey everyone, this is the second video of my first year of ownership of my 2015 Alfa Romeo 4C. So today I'm going to talk to you about the good, the bad, of which there's not very much, and then all the fun I've had with it in the past year. This is a fun video for me to do just because I've had so much fun with this car over the past year. It's been wonderful. It scratches a lot of my itches, acceleration, cornering, it looks great, it sounds great. I mean, what more could a guy want? Plus, it's rare and exotic, so it's just a fabulous car inside and out. I love the Alfa Romeo 4C for a lot of the same reasons that I love the Lotus Elise. It takes Lotus's mantra, simplify, then add lightness, pretty seriously, especially in the add lightness department. In terms of simplifying, I'm not quite sure that they were as true to that motto as perhaps Lotus was in designing the Lotus Elise, but hey, it's a new car, it's designed, a decade or more later, and it incorporates a lot of modern electronics and conveniences which are very helpful, quite frankly, and they increase the drivability and the usability of the car as a daily driver. I'm going to go like this. Thank you so much. Appreciate it very much.
Looks like you guys practice this whole podium thing. Sure.
In our dreams, right? Yeah. The Alfa Romeo 4C is very much a driver's car. You really feel part of the driving experience. You don't have a lumbering, giant, heavy beast around you. You're really compact, and it becomes a part of your body. It's almost like putting on a wetsuit, I think someone described it as. So it becomes tight and part of your body, and it becomes an extension of yourself as you're driving this thing around the track or even in town just having fun going around some curves. I also love the 4C for a lot of the things that are different from the Lotus Elise. For example, some of those electronics and modern conveniences. Hill assist. That is fabulous. I so love that feature. So when I'm on a hill, it is smart enough to detect the angle of the hill, and if it's too steep, it will actually keep the brakes slightly engaged for a second or two until you have time to engage the gear and go forward. That saves me all the panic of when I have a car pull up too close behind me. And of course, I'm sitting in this extremely fragile car with a fiberglass body, and if you were to get bumped by a car, it could be a very expensive repair. So having hill assist is fabulous. It has cruise control for those long highway drives. As I get older, I tend to have more and more sort of physical setbacks, tendonitis in my elbow or this, that, or the other thing. So having DCT and the ability to drive the car as an automatic is a real help. I mean, it really makes it a joy to drive when I'm experiencing some of those challenges. In terms of construction, I just love the fact that it's hand-built in a Maserati factory. It's got a carbon fiber tub, much like the F1 cars and much more expensive supercars. So that is just one of those things, one of those details. You don't necessarily know it just looking at the car. You have to know the nuts and bolts of a car. And in terms of rarity, the 4C is actually considerably more rare than the Lotus Elise or Exige. The total global production of Alfa Romeo 4Cs was only like 9,000. So that's just a tiny little number. One of the big bonuses of owning an Alfa Romeo 4C, and one of the things that pleasantly surprised me, was the local community. So I've owned a Lotus for about 8 years, and for whatever reason, I have not found a very active community of Lotus owners here in the Triangle. That's not to say that they're not here, but there's not really an active club. People don't get together for Lotus drives and dinners and things like that. But when I connected with the Alfa Romeo 4C owners, it was very different. They wanted to get together for drives, they wanted to get together for dinners, just to compare cars. So it's been a lot of fun. We've done some track days together and things like that. Now that's not to say that this is a global statement about Lotus owners versus Alfa Romeo owners. It is very much a local phenomenon, and I've heard of much more active Lotus groups in other areas, even as close as Charlotte, North Carolina. I have to say it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know the other Alfa Romeo 4C owners here in the Triangle. In the past year, I've made a lot of great memories with the local Alfa Romeo 4C owners. We've gone on drives, we've gone to charity laps events at Virginia International Raceway, we've had dinners together, we've gone out for ice cream and a nice drive in the country. I attended my first high-performance driving event with another Alfa Romeo 4C owner. I guess the only notable thing that I'd like to do that I haven't yet is take my 4C to the tail of the dragon. So I did that with my Lotus about 1.5 years ago, and I'd love to do it again with the 4C and kind of compare notes. Not to mention it'll just be fun as hell. So how does the Alfa Romeo 4C compare to the Lotus Elise? Well, I think it would be helpful to take the scorecard from one of my recent videos where I was comparing the new Lotus Emira with my Lotus Elise and my Alfa Romeo 4C. And we'll just sort of factor out the Emira and see how the Elise and the 4C stacked up against each other. I'm out in the garage today, and as you can see, the Alfa Romeo is up on the lift. But that's because I've been driving it almost exclusively for the last 4.5 months since my total hip replacement surgery in January. And it's really just because it is so easy to drive in automatic mode with the DCT transmission. In fact, it's even easy to drive with the paddle shifters because that doesn't really require me to use my legs any more than it would an automatic car. So I really have enjoyed it over those last few months, but it was time to break out the Lotus and give it some exercise. So I've been doing that over just the last couple weeks and enjoying it a lot. You can see the Alfa, unfortunately, is got this sort of ill-fitting cover on it because that's a Lotus Elise cover. It almost fits. The proportions are just a tiny bit different. So now I need to talk to you about the bad of owning the Alfa Romeo 4C. And as I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot. There are really two things that I would throw into the bad category. One is a very minor thing. It's the seatbelt warning. That is a super loud, piercing sound that will get you if you don't buckle your seatbelt before you turn on the car. And you know, I think that's stupid, but I've just learned to buckle the seatbelt beforehand. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the electronics. So because this is a more modern car than the Lotus Elise, the electronics are more complicated and unfortunately a little bit more sensitive and finicky. I experienced some real problems driving the car, and it was all due to electrical fluctuations as far as I can tell. So what happened is I'd be driving along and the car would throw up an error and go into nanny mode. So I forget what they call it. There's another mode for that, but it's basically a self-preservation mode. It stops you from driving and shifting gears, and in fact, it can leave you stationary. So a couple times it left me stationary in the center lane of a 5-lane road. Another time it left me stranded on a 30-degree, very steep hill, and I had to wave a passerby to help me push it off onto a side road. That's just not cool. And I kept looking at it thinking, I'm not experiencing any other problems, and there were enough posts on the forums talking about how this could be due to minor power fluctuations that I decided to check that out first. So I got a brand new battery, I got a Bluetooth monitor to monitor the voltage of the battery, and knock on wood, everything has been fine ever since I did that, and I haven't had any more problems. But that's annoying. You know, and with the Lotus Elise, it's such an analog vehicle, there just aren't nearly as many opportunities for that sort of thing to happen. So it's unfortunate that that is what comes along with the new technology and progress, but it is what it is. In terms of other comparisons, the 4C has a turbocharger, whereas my Elise has a supercharger, and I do like the idea of superchargers better in general. That said, the turbo on the 4C is a lot of fun, and it's fabulous, and it adds a lot of power and dynamicism to the driving experience. So, you know, no complaints there. I just love it. It's fabulous. In terms of transmissions, I still think in general that I prefer a manual transmission over a DCT with paddle shifters, but I would say if I'm limited to one car, I would probably prefer to have that option of DCT either with manual paddles or with automatic mode. But since I'm allowed to have two cars, then I do like to have a car that has a manual transmission. So thinking it through, I think if I were only allowed to have one car, it might be the Alfa Romeo 4C. It has an awful lot to recommend it. But since I am allowed to have two cars, I think I prefer to have a car that has a manual transmission as my sort of more basic driver's car, fun car. In my last video, I explained my bucket list and how that works, and I also explained the circumstances under which I purchased this Alfa Romeo 4C. So you know it's not my dream car, In recent years, I've always said that I would never own another black car, and that's really based on my experience as a teenager. When I was in college, I had a black Mercury Capri, and in the Indiana summers, in the scorching heat, that was just murder. It was so uncomfortable, and that car just heated up so fast, the seats would burn you, just not a fun experience. Not to mention that it is extremely hard to keep a black car looking clean. So even though I said I'd never have another black car, this was the right deal for me at this time. And so I bought this Alfa Romeo 4C. It is black, obviously, but it was not my dream car, right? I really like the car better in other colors. I think that the basalt gray is fabulous. I think some of the reds are really attractive. There's also a mother of pearl, which is just gorgeous. It's a sort of a white, but it's a pearlescent white. So at this point, I think I've decided that I will be selling the Alfa Romeo 4C at some point. I'm not exactly sure when, but it's not going to be my long-term hold. If I decide that I like the 4C better than the Elise, then I'm going to look for a different 4C. I'm going to look for one in a different color and maybe with some upgrades. So when I sell it, I guess I will at least feel good that I'm selling it in a better condition than I found it, because as you would have noticed from my last video, I did spend several $1,000s repairing some paint defects. So really it looks fabulous now. And I really hope when the other 4C owners in the club hear that I'm going to sell the car that they don't kick me out of the club, because I really value those friendships and hope that we can continue that even when I'm not driving an Alfa Romeo.
One final note before I end this video. There's a lot of talk amongst the sports car community and especially amongst Alfa Romeo 4C owners about whether the 4C will one day become the next classic car to own. And I think there's a lot to commend itself in that respect. The 4C is an extremely capable, fun driver's car. The technical specs are phenomenal. The carbon fiber tub is unique. The fact that it's built in a Maserati factory and the fact that it had low production numbers and has been discontinued all add to the possibility. So I'll be excited to follow this car in years to come and see, if and when it does become the next classic car to own. If you own one now, enjoy the heck out of it. If you don't, you should seriously consider it. It is a wonderful car to own. So thanks for watching. If you liked today's video, I would really appreciate it if you left a comment and subscribed to my channel. Making this video was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed reminiscing over my fun and experiences with the Alfa Romeo 4C over the last year. Getting to know that car has been an absolute joy. Whatever car you're driving, have a blast driving it.